When Heidi and I met, I was working full-time, running the legal team for a company, and Heidi was a nurse. And I had a property that I was living in, and Heidi also was living in her own property. Not long after we'd met, I then committed to buying an investment property. So we had the 3 properties, and it was then thinking about longer term and starting a family, and we started thinking about what we needed to do from an investment point of view with those 3 properties, and whether we should be getting some advice to look at whether we needed more property. I also was fully aware that there was a lot of spruiking and a lot of advice out there that wasn't independent and was not going to be the right advice for us. And I would question that advice because, you know, I'm a professional advisor myself, so I know what it takes to give good, independent, specialist advice. And I wasn't comfortable that that advice was freely available in the market. So when you're finding someone and you don't have that relationship, it has to be based on trust. And I can't recollect exactly, but I was probably reading, you know, property investor magazines and listening to media, and they would have come across the podcast, Empower Wealth podcast. And I think it was that, in fact, it was that prompted me to start conversations with Heidi to say, look, we've got 3 properties, and maybe we need to be looking at how we treat those properties. We're comfortable with property. We can't live, you know, in Brunswick forever. What do we want to do? So I don't even know if I was thinking about a plan, you know, a written plan with stepped out of what we ultimately ended up getting, but that was probably through that message of that podcast was around the planning. So then I contacted Empower Wealth just to say I was interested, and I think there was an opportunity for a consultation. So that was the first contact. And one of the things I have is when you contact and how quickly and how personal is the message you get back. And it was a very quick and very personal message, which was impressive to me and what I look for anyway in customer service, and particularly when you're talking about something of such importance. So I went into that consultation pessimistic, and I was, you know, very wary of the industry. And so I went in there wanting to be very clear that the message coming back was it was independent and what services they offered and how they offered them. After that consultation, which was a free consultation, it was, yeah, okay, we'll go ahead. There was no actual pressure, you know, no one was calling us and spruiking anything to us, but I went home and said, I'm really, you know, really impressed. I think these guys can really help Empower Wealth. So we then organised the meeting to sit down with the strategic property planning. There was pre-planning to that session, so we were sent a link, I think, at that point to a questionnaire, a really detailed questionnaire with a whole bunch of questions about who we were. You know, there was that basic facts, but there was those things about values that, yeah, did resonate, because there were questions that I wasn't expecting. You know, I was expecting a financial fact finder. But that in itself was really helpful because it made you think about, and it was so detailed about every cost of living expense, you know. And I knew going in that we'd provided all the information we needed to provide, so we weren't going along to sit through another session that we'd already sat through to hear about the service. It was about, okay, now we're paying for something, and we're going to get something real out of our first session. We had this idea, the mainstream idea, that we needed to accumulate property to accumulate wealth. And, you know, that was what we went in there with. And we'd done this questionnaire and we were comfortable that, you know, they had the data that they needed. And we came out of that session with the message, so we don't want you to buy any more property, and we don't want you to sell any of your properties. We probably both sat back in our chairs and laughed because it just wasn't the message that we expected. And I probably chuckled because it couldn't have been more clear to me that the message that had been delivered from the beginning to that point was our service is independent, it's fee for service, and this is what you'll get. You'll get a strategic plan based on your own financial inputs and own financial goals and outcomes that you're looking for, and there will be nothing else that will be put on the table to try and lead you into a different service. We all walked out very comfortable, not only with the financial plan or the strategic plan, which is what we went there for. There was no mention of using any other services because they were saying don't buy and don't sell. So for what I would think is a fairly modest investment by us for a business of their size as well, there was no expectation or message inferred or expressed that we should be looking to use any other services they offered. So the weight was lifted off my shoulders because I didn't feel like I had to go with the pack. It was just relief. You know, really, we can make some decisions that really impact our life without having to go into further debt. One of our goals that was written into the plan was around starting a family. So we walked out, you know, with that plan and studied that plan, and I probably studied it more, but very comfortable. Jasper arrived. And then At the same time that Jasper was born, I'd also made a decision to leave my corporate career and start my own business. And that was all based on the financial security. In fact, it was based on the messages that came out of that plan, because we knew that I could make that decision. And it took me, it was probably 4 years of thinking about doing that and never doing anything about it, to then that decision being made within 12 months of that plan. So that small investment has then completely changed how we live our life, because I now have complete flexibility and with my own business. And I didn't tell, by the way, and this is an important message, we didn't tell Empower Wealth that we were doing it, but what we did is, after life settled down a bit with Jasper arriving, I just contacted Empower Wealth and said, oh, by the way, I quit my job and now I'm running my own business. So we went back in and we revised the plan, but we're completely comfortable because now we have it in our plan. We know exactly what we need to do to still achieve what we want to achieve. We have a completely different life to what we had before we went in. Being able to see that data and see that plan for financial security has made all the difference. It's given us the confidence to know that we can make key life decisions and achieve key life goals, because we have it all down and we're very clear on where we're going. And those key decisions are, me leaving my career and starting my own business, spending more time. I spend a lot more time with my son than I could ever probably have hoped for before. If we hadn't got the plan, who knows where we would be, but our thinking at that time was buy more property. If we had have gone and made those decisions, we might not necessarily have bought the right property, and we would have been in more debt. And if we had been in more debt, then I wouldn't have been able to leave my secure income and secure employment to go and set up my own business and actually enjoy my work and enjoy the flexibility of time to spend with my family.